music lovers, and welcome back to the Woodshed. This week, I'm stoked to bring one of the finest players in Europe, in the world actually, one of my good buddies in the industry and a friend that I've known for many, many years, Martin Miller, ladies and gentlemen.
Hey man, how are you?
I'm good. I wish I had some kind of crowd sound where the crowd goes crazy, man. I need to.
Oh, no, I'm used to this, dude. I'm used to this. This makes me feel like home. So.
So, for those that don't know, Martin is in that group of guys that I speak so fondly of, our little graduating class from Petrucci Forum.
Yeah.
Tom and Martin and Rick and myself, and had Jack Gardner on this week. And I always look at it like we were the seniors and he was the freshman. You know, it was like that's the way that kind of went out. Yeah, man. So we met back then, and since then you have not only just grown as a player to just a ferocious player, but man, you've done so well with things like your live in studio sessions on YouTube that started out these mega medleys, and then you started bringing in the homeboys and doing like Mark Terry in there, Andy Timmons, Josh Smith, all my favorite players, and your band is ridiculous. I want you to talk about that band. You have a new Ibanez signature model. Well, I guess it's a year older-ish, but
Two, yeah.
Yeah, still new.
Yeah. Still new, yeah.
Still new. And you have one studio solo album out, and then you are in the studio now cutting a new one. And since I have known you, you went from like I'm not a singer to a great singer, and you're doing all the vocals in the live studio stuff. Man, dude, you're awesome. Thank you for being on here and just talk about just talk about that growth. Let's kick the ball down the hill. Coming from your university days into your YouTube channel that's mega successful now, and talk about the band, man. List those guys off.
Yeah. So I don't know. I had an interesting sort of mutation process going on in the last couple of years specifically, but really, I mean, when I was in college, so I was in college from 2004 to 2010 or so. All I ever wanted to be was like a diehard fusion player. So like my dream gig would have been something like the Chicoria Electric Band or so. That's the kind of thing I aspired to be. And then down the line in the subsequent years, I really felt the need, like with the whole JTC thing kicking off and the Petrucci Forum being such a breeding ground for amazing players. I felt like I really needed to do a record, but to make a guitar record, which kind of is what it is. So my first record is just really like an amalgamation of different stuff that I was playing on the guitar. There was no real direction to it or a common thread other than the fact that I'm playing guitar on it. It was like I was still young and curious and kind of fleshing out what I was actually comfortable with. And I think that record is part of that growth, part of that journey. That then changed later on yet again when I really got into, like, there was a kind of an identity crisis I had around 5 years ago, if you will, where I realized that the music I'm making is not the music I grew up with or the music that I enjoy listening to in my own time. And I realized that the music that I want to be doing is the music that I love listening to. And I'm just such a grumpy old man now. And I just, my favorite music is what? It's Pink Floyd, Queen, Dream Theater, Toto, those types of bands.
Well, you came up more of a rock guy before you got into fusion, Martin.
Yes.
You were rock Martin.
Absolutely, and I've kind of morphed back into that. Like I got really hardcore into fusion in my college years.
Yeah,
I got like my entry drug was Mike Stern.
Yeah, I mean, like I remember us all kind of coming out of that Petrucci Forum, like Petri dish or whatever, and all of us going in our directions. And I remember Super Fusion, Martin. We actually shared the
Yeah,
stage on the one of the Sir way back in the day, one of the Sir events, and Scott was there, and you were doing
yeah,
the
yeah.
mega fusion stuff. That was, man, that was a great night, dude. We had a good time that
Oh,
night.
that was awesome. That was 2013. That was the first time we ever met in person.
And it seemed so
Yeah.
weird that when we met in person, much like the internet does to things, it's like I feel like I feel like I knew you. You know what I mean? It's like it wasn't even like
Absolutely.
meeting you. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
it's like that's the way that works. Yeah. So back on course here. You were doing you basically did rock thing in college. You got into the super fusion, and then you started coming back around. You made a good point. You're just like the identity crisis thing, that
Yeah.
looking for a common thread in a first record. First records tend to do that. My first record
Yeah.
is just like all over the place. I was like, I don't really. I'm trying to find my way. And it's funny. We just talked last week with Jack. He spent 10 years not making a record. So when he finally did it, it's like got this streamlined, it's right on the nose. He like really
Yeah.
nailed his first outing, and it's funny how that works. But so you and I share a big passion with plenty of bands, man. Like
Mhm.
you list Toto, you list Queen, you list Dream Theater. It's like that's where we connect. And what led you back? I guess just to reiterate, what led you back from fusion, super fusion, hyper player back into like, man, I want the sassy rock stuff. And how did you like aim your identity towards like these really slick in studio live things, which
Mhm.
I love because there's very little room for going in and fixing something when it's live in the studio,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's very organic, and it actually feels like music. Even though the
Yeah.
song selection is different, it feels a lot like some of those live at Daryl's house. If you've watched any of those,
Yeah, big time. Yeah,
it
I
feels
didn't
like
even
that.
know what that was until people started pointing it out to me, and
And
I was
it's
like, yeah,
brilliant, dude. I love those Daryl's house things, man. Specifically the Joe Walsh one, CeeLo, and Chromeo. Those three are just
I saw the
nuts.
Joe Walsh. Yeah,
Yeah, so
incredible.
good. So yeah, just kind of spread some light on that.
I don't know. It's like I said that there was this kind of revelation I had in about 2000, late 2015, early 2016, that I saw how people. It's kind of weird, but I saw how people reacted to certain types of music, and I felt that if people listen to bands like Queen or Pink Floyd, they have a much different reaction than if they listen to the Chick Corea Electric Band, for example. And I found myself wanting wanting for my music to have that kind of response in people on one hand, and also that kind of response in myself. Like I was going down this road of hyper intellectual music, like where everything is super head focused, and I was really I'm that academic type of person anyway, so I was really into that, but I was there was something missing that kind of music didn't give me. I was really craving dearly,
Yeah.
and I it was a process though. It was not like something that happened overnight, right? It was a process of getting there. And
Growth
one
in
of the
your
big
channel. Sorry, I was just going to say I could see that growth in your channel, that evolution
yeah
process, as that kind of molded.
yeah, and one of the pivotal points was that I started singing, and that led me down a whole different creative path because now I can make a vocal record, and writing vocal music is so much different than writing instrumental music. It's such a different beast.
Yeah, yeah. I've wrote I've never been the singer, but I've always been a primary writer, and
Yeah,
it
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and a lot of those bands are vocal bands, and it is very different. Like just the perspective, man. This is fun. This is a fun question because I don't know the answer to it, and I'm racking my brain myself. What is it that you call that thing that is in that music that you're talking about, that one little element, that fifth element, so to speak, that's
Yeah, yeah.
it's like, what is that that sits in that music, and it's for me, it doesn't necessarily have to be something bluesy, right? Like innately, when I was thinking through it in my head, I was like, "Oh, I want this," you know. So, but it's not even that because
Oh, my
yes,
vocal music has no blues in it
yeah, I know. It's
whatsoever.
like,
I'm the
what is it?
unbluesiest guy on earth.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
like, what is it that when a song like maybe Rosanna or a Queen song or something like, what is it that you think to you specifically that is that fifth element that hits you that takes you out of guitar guy mode? I guess is
Hmm.
the right way to word it because when I hear great music, Chris Stapleton is one of my favorite artists, and when I listen to that music. I'm out of guitar. I'm no longer a guitar player. I'm no longer a musician. I'm a listener. What is that fifth element that in your mind and in your words that does that, and who are some artists that do that to you besides the
Yeah.
obvious artist?
So this is such a great question, and I wish I had time to think about it. But I'm just going to say, first of all, I think a huge element is the vocal itself, because I don't think there is and will ever be a more expressive instrument. There is something that speaks to you when somebody is singing that no other instrument can even come close to. In the same way that a piano, like I love listening to solo piano music, like I love listening to Chopin's nocturnes and stuff like that. And that is something you could never match with your voice.
Right. Yeah.
In the same way that vocal music, it just has something to it that speaks to you directly, that stares right into your soul. And also, like you mentioned Toto, you mentioned Rosanna, there is a, like with Toto, a band that arranges their songs so incredibly well, there is a balance to the music that I find incredibly satisfying. You know, it starts out with a killer drum groove, so that gets checked off the list. You got a killer bass groove, checked off the list. You got an incredible vocal. You got harmonic depth because there's a ton of piano. You got some funkiness through the brass arrangements. At the end of the tune, you have enough space for the guitar player to stretch out. And it just ticks so many boxes if it's well done. And that's kind of what I'm aiming to do, is to have that balance in the experience. Like, even though I'm the biggest guitar lover on earth, I find it very tiring at times to sit through an entire record of guitar music.
Man, I couldn't agree more. And when I do find one of those records, I'm like astounded. Like I'm astounded that something of that has held my attention because a lot of
Yeah.
times I end up skipping and sometimes my Spotify knows that I'm a guitar player, right? And so it keeps feeding me instrumental guitar music. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, you know what I want? I want 38 Special or Leonard Skinner or
Yeah.
something. You know what I mean? I want something that
Yeah.
takes me out of that, even though there's guitars in that. Yeah, talking about those checking those boxes and all of those different things that that reach out and grab you, and you know, there's like this fundamental thing that I believe that lies in a great song that
Mhm.
regardless of how it's presented to you, um, whether it be played on children's toys or 8
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Nintendo or whatever, a great song stands on its merits no matter its delivery.
Yeah.
You know, and we see that often on YouTube with guys playing Thunderstruck with a tractor and a banjo or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like a great song for me.
Raining blood on a banjo.
Yeah, exactly. Raining banjos. That's a terrible. I think raining banjos is far more frightening than raining blood, honestly. So with that said, in your evolution from growing from guitar guy into what I consider, at least on this side of the glass, a great band leader. Like I see you as a band leader, and man, how did you come across those players, right? And I know for a fact that when that thing was getting off the ground, the funding and the financing wasn't there in place like it may be now. You know what I mean? How much faith was in that either by you or them? Like, talk about that growth process because I think that's really important for guys
Mhm.
that may just be getting into YouTube and they're like, I don't even know how to start. You know what I mean? I don't even know.
So to be doing what we do is it's not easy to copy. You don't see a lot of copies of what we do out there, even though it's so successful. Because usually, if you strike gold with something, you spawn a lot of copycats. And I think what we do is so hard to accomplish. And I'm just extremely fortunate that a lot of things just happen to fall into place.
Talk
And
about those,
I
man.
didn't,
What
I didn't
what are
even
those
plan for
things?
those things to fall in place. So
What
yeah,
are
so
those?
First of all, of course, the musicians. So Marius and I, the keyboard player and I, we go way back. We've known each other for nearly 20 years now, 18 years. So yeah, we attended the same jazz competition when we were teens, and we were the only guys in that competition that weren't into jazz. he was setting up his fake Hammond keyboard and started playing Child in Time by Deep Purple, and I was like, this is my guy. That was before I got into jazz, actually. Yeah. So we go way back. We even used to be roommates back in the day, in college days. So yeah, we go way back. And it's actually his studio that we're doing the whole thing in.
Gotcha.
Or his band studio. Yeah. So that's Marius. Then Benny, I got to know, our bass player. I got to know him through a mutual friend. I've always had him on my radar. And when I got to know him, he was actually still very young. And he's been on my radar for 10 years till I finally had the opportunity to just invite him to go and do something together.
Yeah. Okay.
So that I was waiting for an opportunity to draw me in, because I knew he was an incredible bass player. I didn't know he could sing like that. So that was a nice extra thing.
And so your drummer, who's fabulous, man, good Lord.
He's a god. Felix Lehrmann is a freaking drum god. And I've been a fan of his, like, in around 2008, people in my college back in the day started talking about him as some kind of
the mythos thing that happens.
Urban legend, yeah.
Urban legend, yeah.
Because he played when he was 17, he already played with some of Germany's biggest pop artists. So he was a full-on touring musician at age 17, and therefore became a bit of an urban legend. And yeah, I've been checking it out on YouTube for years before I even got to know him. And then in 2016, I was fortunate enough that the folks from Ibanez, Germany, booked us for the same festival, and he was the drummer on the bill, so we got to play together, and we really clicked, hit it off. And I was like, you know what, I may have a thing here that I want to do, and I want to invite you to it. So that was my opportunity.
Like everything was kind of lined up or whatever. Yeah.
Absolutely. And man, to this day, everybody in the band is working for free. It's a labor of love, including myself. None of us is getting paid.
Yeah.
So, and that's the only way we can fund this. Now, fortunately, I have an amazing crew. Like, behind the scenes, we're like 14 to 15 people.
Unbelievable.
When the stuff is going down. And I'm fortunate enough now through Patreon that I can actually pay the crew, because they have to do the tough physical labor. Yep. We get to play and be in the spotlight, but they have to do the tough labor and not get any credit for it.
Yeah. So. I love that point. To our woodsheds out there, check out the video. I want to point out that, Rick Beato pointed this out the other day. It's like, you get 1 million views on YouTube. That's like $1,200. You know what I mean? Without things like Patreon, that's the support that allows really great top tier content to come out. You know what I mean? And not necessarily that it's Patreon specific. Like Rick's got his Beato book. He went into depth about talking about how that's the support, and the Beato Club, and all of these types of things. I guess what my point is if you enjoy something that maybe Martin's done, or Jack, or any of the guests that we've had on the show, always go down one more layer and see how they're funding their projects, because you don't have to give $5,000, just a couple of bucks here and there. If you get, several hundred people giving a couple of bucks, now you've paid for a crew. Now you've paid for a guy to edit. Now you've paid for the mix. Now you've paid for these layers that aren't labors of love, that are actual labor, barter labor.
Well, to be honest, I'm still doing all the video editing and audio mixing myself. Every single video.
Yeah, people don't realize that you're a great mixer. You got great ears on you for mixing and stuff like that.
Yeah, so that's another passion of mine, really. It's kind of developed this trifold kind of thing where I play guitar, sing, and mix, with guitar by far being the main thing, but having these other things supported. And unfortunately, with us, with what we do, we cannot monetize because it's covers. So we cannot.
Yeah. So that's a whole extra layer to it. Yeah, you can't monetize covers. Yeah.
And I do not want to monetize it, because I do not want to run the risk of having anything taken down. Because for me, it's ultimately
very, very common. Yeah.
Knock on wood, nothing. No pun intended, but knock on wood, nothing has been taken down yet.
Yeah. And it's interesting on which bands and artists, and it sometimes it's which bands managements, which artist managements choose to take
Yeah,
stuff down. You can ironically have a band member shoot you a Twitter, be a mega fan, and their management take your stuff down. It's like
yeah,
some of the
that
stuff
happened to
that,
Rick
yeah,
Beato. Yeah,
it's like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
weird. So shifting gears, just a touch.
yeah.
Um, Man, you've got a new record coming out. We were chit-chatting. I also want to talk a bit about the growth and the evolution of your development relationship with Ibanez and
Hmm.
what it means to get a sponsorship. One of the things that I get hit with in emails quite often, I'm sure you do too, is like, hey man, I want to get sponsored, I want to get sponsored, I want to get sponsored. It's like the trick in this perspective, and you and I have talked about this a lot of times, is it's
Yes.
they're not endorsing you, you are endorsing them. That's the relationship. The artist endorsed the product does not endorse the artist. It's like it should have that weight to it. And when I answered that back to guys, a lot of times they're like, well, what do you mean? And I know you know what I'm talking about. It's like oftentimes, it's just having that foresight to remember that you are the one creating the art, creating the content, the albums, the songs, the covers, the whatever that may be. I know you have a great relationship with Ibanez, specifically Ibanez Europe, and how that came about, and Tom too. Man, talk about that evolution and falling into that fold before we talk about the record.
Yeah. So, man, Ibanez have been absolutely freaking incredible from the start. So, I was actually fortunate enough to sign a deal with Hoshino themselves, so the brand holder. That's the brand or the overarching company that holds Tama and Ibanez. So I'm working directly with the Japanese folks on one hand. On the other hand, we do have all these local distributors, such as like the Minor Distributions, which do the distribution for Germany and a bunch of other countries as well. So I have both these companies that I work with, and they've been nothing short of incredible. And they took a kind of a big leap of faith with me because when they signed me on, I didn't have the big numbers. I didn't have the kind of exposure I have now. Was nowhere where I am now. So they kind of put their trust in me in a way and put me on tours, got me ads in papers and all that kind of stuff. And they were just so happy to have me on board, and I was so happy to be working with them. This was just such a mutually beneficial relationship that grew so much over time, but based on the initial trust that they gave to me. So I'm really
Faith,
incredibly
even,
thankful.
yeah, faith might be the
Yeah.
right word. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So that's been growing over years now. And I couldn't be happier.
yeah, I think a lot of that is really a, like I guess what would be the right word? I'm trying, like my brain's like shutting down. Like I guess a lot of that innately is just a testament really to your chops and your proficiency on the instrument before you had the numbers, right?
Mhm.
I think that's a lot of it. Tom came to Ibanez
A little
similarly
later.
in time, yeah, as you too, And when those videos and those clinics started circling around, you guys playing the duo stuff. I think that was
Yeah.
like the immediate thing where Hoshino was like, "Yeah, we got us a couple of golden gooses here with these guys." So that's awesome that you have that relationship, man. What kind of amps and stuff? Last time I checked, last time we touched base and talked gear, you were playing some Laney stuff, man.
Yeah.
What's kind of ticking your boxes on the gear side and the amp side and the modeler side these days?
Same old, really. I'm not changing gear much because I kind of found what I'm comfortable with.
Which is,
Still using all the Laney stuff, especially live.
yep.
So I've done so many gigs with my Iron Heart. It's like I never had the tubes changed. It's like a miracle that thing is even switching on still. So and the great thing about Laney is that when we went on tour, like in I think in 2018 alone, Tom and I did 15 countries, and I had a Laney amp sitting behind me in every one of those countries. So that was really awesome. Get
Did you take any
consistent
kind of
tone
small?
every night.
Did you take any kind of small pedal board? Did you take an Axe Like what did you take?
Well, the fortunate thing is that a lot of Ibanez distributors also distribute Laney, depending on what country you're in.
Uh-huh.
So there's a close network of communication, and so I was fortunate enough to get my combo amp most of the time that I'm using. So I'm using the Ironheart combo amp.
Uh-huh. What'd you use for
Um,
effects is what I was saying. Like, did you like delays and verbs and stuff? Did you ever use?
yeah, I use the. It's up there. You can see the atomic amplifier. I've been using that as a preamp into the effects loop of the Laney,
Oh,
and
cool.
have all the sounds come from that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, yeah,
That
excellent.
is a super sweet device, yeah. And for the studio, man, I got the XFX2, I got the XFX3. I've been getting a lot into plugins as well. There have been some incredible plugins as of late.
Which ones
Like
are you liking these days?
I really dig and it's kind of underrated. I dig the Bluegrass Audio Destructor, or Axiom it's called now. It's Axiom is the multi-effects version. Destructor is just the amp slash distortion part of that. I like some of the overloud stuff is great.
Yep.
Um, specifically the THU. Neural DSP is a no-brainer these
Yep.
days,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And coming up now, big with some really amazing stuff. Mostly known for the cap simulations, but coming up with some incredible M sims now is ML Sound Labs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yep.
Man, that stuff is killing. They've been my favorite caps forever, but now the M simulations are incredible as well.
Oh, excellent. Excellent. So let's continue on your little evolution in life. And now at some point in your growth, you're doing these videos and you start taking up the mantle of singer, right? What was it
Yep.
like going from I don't sing to singing incredibly difficult songs? Like
Yeah.
that's a steep hill to climb.
It's humbling. It's kind of you're gonna have to accept a lot of things that are very hard to swallow when you start singing. Now, first of all, you cannot put the same amount of hours into practice as you can with a guitar,
Yeah.
because my voice teacher used to say, or still says, singing is like the sprinting of vocalization. So even if you do it correctly, there's only so much you should do of it.
Yeah.
So that's very humbling. The second humbling thing is that at first you try to mold your voice into a sound that you like. Kind of like with the guitar, you start playing the notes of your favorite guitar player. You start using the same instrument, start tweaking the amp to sound like the whole thing, and ta-da, you can play like David Gilmour.
Yeah. Yeah.
With the voice, that doesn't apply. There's a physical exposition that you have, the starting point, and that cannot be changed. It's just the way it is. And I've had to learn the hard way that there are certain things that my voice is made for, that it's naturally good at, and there will be stuff that it's not so good for. And finding those strengths and accepting that you should be pursuing your strengths and not your weaknesses with the voice is very humbling as well. And man, it's a very fragile instrument as well, because right now I'm on a voice rest because I got some problem in my throat that is not singing related, and I can't finish my record. So man, it's a fickle beast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a, it's humbling. It's humbling to be a beginner. At the same time, it's very motivating because you make progress every day. You remember when you started out with the guitar, and every lesson you took, like in my case, every voice lesson I take, I learned so much. It's like every lesson is a revelation.
All right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's kind of awesome. Yeah. And man, the level of expression with the voice, like hearing yourself sing on a recording when if you nailed it, that's very important. If you nailed it and you hear yourself sing on a recording, it doesn't get more satisfying than that, honestly.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But
So,
at the same time, it's nothing's more embarrassing than if your voice cracks or something
oh,
like that.
for sure, for sure. It's like it's the most exposing naked kind of moment musically, you know.
For sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that transition into your new record and what is your kind of mission statement with your new record, right? And I know it's probably this is always the worst question that I get asked, and now here I am asking it to you. What is it that the record kind of vibes like? What does it feel like musically? Like what are you trying to do with it? Is it a rocker? Is it a talk to us about that?
You could probably call it progressive rock, but not in a contemporary sense,
Sure.
not in a degent
Maybe
kind of
more like a
sense.
Yes or a Genesis or something like that kind of.
Yeah, so my influence, as I mentioned before, is Pink Floyd, Queen, Dream Theater, Toto, Muse, those kinds of bands. But kind of like an updated version, but with a certain degree of nostalgia to it, I would say.
Yeah.
Of course, there's the modern production. There's that slightly extra edge of aggression that my music has that, for example, Pink Floyd won't have.
Yep.
And kind of my mission statement really, like I started out with one mission statement, but as the record grew, I added a ton of them to it. The initial mission statement was just to make a record that I would really want to listen to.
Yeah. Yeah. Clicking those boxes internally.
Yeah.
That was very similar for myself on my
Yeah.
last record. I was like, I want to have things that I like, you know what I mean, and not necessarily trying to put all kinds of weight on the opinions of others. Kind of just trying to make
Hmm.
something you would enjoy yourself. Speaking of things you enjoy yourself, nice little segue. Uh, who in music? Let's not even say guitar stuff, but who in music
Yeah.
these days are you listening to? Specifically, maybe is there some new artist? Is there some stuff that's really making you happy in the music world? And is there some stuff out there that you're like, oh man, I wish things weren't going this way? Like if you don't have anything good, it's like oh, is it something that you want to fix in the game, or is it something that you know that you're like? I guess maybe fashion based, right? Like all of that kind of stuff, like the current wave of music. What's your opinion on it?
Well, to be honest, I've been doing this record for 2 years now. I wanted it to be a quick process. Now I'm in year two, so but it's almost done anyway. So apart from the vocals, but I kind of wanted it to be a quick process, and I kind of shut myself off from new influences in the process.
Really? Okay.
I haven't really been listening to anything new so much. No, no, no. I wanted that record to kind of come from the inside, from
Yep.
my memory, and from my nostalgia. Um, I do, however, man, there's more great musicians out there now than ever before, I would say.
Yep.
Like the artists, the fresh artists I enjoy nowadays are the ones that maintain a level of sincerity in their performance, which is why, let's say, Snarky Puppy is a great example.
Okay.
It's first of all music that is so incredibly well balanced, as what we talked earlier. It's so incredibly well balanced. It's just good music, and it's performed live, has a level of authenticity to it that I really enjoy. Yeah, a lot of those neo fusion bands, Wolfpack are amazing, Dirty Loops are amazing.
Yep.
Those kinds of bands, like those neo fusion bands, if you will, I think they're fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
did I
Yeah.
say the F word?
No, no,
Sorry.
no. You can cuss all day long. We don't care. You can cuss all day long. That's nice, man. I agree, man. A lot of that stuff that has been getting good to me has that. There's no better word. The authenticity, the sincerity. Man, do you listen to? Are you listening to any things that aren't necessarily string guitar related? Like when you just chilling out, when you're vibing, doing your dishes or something. Is it like what is it that you just throw on the old playlist? What's doing that for you?
Man, my music taste hasn't changed in many years.
Well, that's
It's
okay. Throw it.
Yeah,
So tell
no,
people.
yeah. As I mentioned, like all the '70s stuff, I'm absolutely addicted to. I just cannot get enough of the '70s, man. It's
Yeah.
just it's the best music decade in history.
So what
So
was it
I
like?
love.
So what was it like working with guys like Paul Gilbert and Josh Smith and Mark Lettieri playing songs from the '70s? Let's
Yeah,
maybe bridge that.
I mean, that's just. It's honestly, I had just always dreamed of playing that kind of music, and to have some of the world's greatest guitar players in the same room while that happens, it's absolutely ridiculous. At one point, I was saying to myself, uh, while we were doing Still Got the Blues with Andy Timmons.
Yeah.
If you had told even 28-year-old me in 4 years, 5 years down the line, you're going to be singing Still Got the Blues and Andy Timmons will be playing rhythm guitar for you, it would be like, what the hell is going on? What part of the puzzle am I missing here? So, man, those are some incredibly intense experiences.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, those days are so stressful and there's so much going on. But I think with 8 or 9 of those recording sessions, and it's like I remember every second of them.
Yeah.
It's because it was so intense. And man, like, and also with every guest we brought in, the experience has been so unique.
Yeah.
Like Josh Smith, for example, is such a chill dude. He came in at the end of his tour from the UK, flying over, had 2 hours of sleep, had a gig in London the night before, and came in and he was just carrying all his gear, like 3 guitars on his back, an amp in his one arm, his pedal board in the other arm. He came just and the only thing he asked for was a Coke.
Yeah. For those that don't know, Josh Smith loves Coca-Cola more than anybody I've ever met in my life, dude.
Yeah, and other than that, he just sat there, was totally chill, totally calm, and delivered. And that was just astounding to me. Like that level of low maintenance it was just incredible to me. Then there was Paul Gilbert, who also was on tour at the time. He was just so incredibly calm and collected. Yet when the camera lights went on, he turned into a rock star.
Yeah.
You know, he put on the suit and put on the big faces and the big gestures, and it was like, holy shit. It's like, you know, I'm watching a Paul Gilbert instructional, except that I'm in the room and I'm partaking in it.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah, he's great, man. Those are great dudes.
And then you had Mark,
yeah,
for example, Mark Lettieri, who he's a close friend of yours, so you'll know. And with him, it was, first of all, he was one of the few guys we had in for 2 days. No, we had him in for 3 days. So 1 day of setting up and 2 days of playing. And it felt like he had always been part of the band.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Because first of all, he's such an easygoing dude. And second of all, he just makes everybody around him sound better.
He's got that way about him, man. Like he's got really big ears, you know, and the moment he hears something, grabs onto it. And also he's got a great sense of, I don't like to use the term missing, like what is missing, but like he's got a great sense of like identifying a hole in the mix or a hole in the sonic texture and like jumping in that little narrow space. Like, you know, it's like he's great at that, man. We've done jams, you know, with like 4 or 5 guys on stage playing guitar, and like Mark's always grabbing the one thing that like never steps on anybody else. Awesome, is really, it's really great. Man, if you wouldn't mind, even if you got an acoustic or electric or whatever, could you pick up your guitar? One of the things I like to do is just for guys that are beginning their playing or intermediate players, and give us a little tasty nugget. Specifically, one of the things I've always loved in your playing that I identify as a Martin-ism is these like descending triadic type of, or descending or ascending triadic type of things with the slides in them. That is such a thumbprint to your playing. And if you wouldn't mind, just give us a little intro to how one goes about visualizing that. And visualizing it more so than just being like, hey, here's where you put your fingers. You know, with Sound Slice these days, everybody can get a transcription. What is it that you can visualize in some of that like ascending triadic type stuff?
Yeah, so a lot of guys call me out for stealing it from Eric Johnson.
Hey man, if you,
I wouldn't blame them, but the initial, I got nothing to plug it into now. The acoustic will do, right? The acoustic.
Yeah. Should be fine.
So the initial idea that sparked it was one of my professors back in school saying, you know, your lines are too predictable. They don't have enough jumps in it.
Okay.
And he tried he gave me a task to come up with a bunch of sequences, scale sequences I could play that would involve things other than moving diatonically up and down, one note
Yep.
at a time.
Yep.
So I remember the great what's called melodic phrasing, the great instructional DVD by Scott Henderson. Back in the day it was a VHS, but I
Yep.
had it on
Yeah.
because I'm a millennial. So and he talked about the contour of a melody so much, right? So he talked about rhythm. That's an obvious thing. He talked about contour, the flow of the melody, the outline, and he talked about the actual notes. So I thought, what would be an interesting outline of the melody? And I kind of came up with this kind of wave motion in my head of something continuing to flow up and down. So what I'm doing, let's say we're in the key of C minor, and we start on the minor third on the top string. The trick is to go down a diatonic seventh from there. So I'd grab an F here, then go up one diatonic step and go back to the note you started on. And that is cell number 1 from that sequence. And now the trick to get some fluid motion into this is to connect these different cells with slides.
Yep.
So what you get is, and that slide will be the first note of the new 4-note cell. So once again, you go down a diatonic 7, in this case the E flat, up a whole step, and back to the note you started on. And that's kind of the logic behind it, if you will.
Yeah. Okay, so for our beginner woodshedsmans or our guys that are a little not as snappy and advanced, one of the things I'd like you to look at is when Martin is playing, and I'm gonna have him do it right now. Watch the way he plays a three. Let's take 3 of those sequences, 3 of those cells, Martin.
Yeah.
Watch that high string go down. Play just the high
Yeah.
notes from each cell. Right. Excellent. So that's just straight down. Now
Yeah.
jump over to that G string, Martin, and play
Uh,
the same notes from each cell, one note from each cell on that G string. Just descending, one note each.
yeah. And
So even though this can be an intimidating type of sound, especially at some of the tempos Martin can whip it out at, it's like even though it's an intimidating type of sound, you can see a natural, simplistic line that is going on each string in a parallel motion. So now, Martin, if you will, take it at a light jog and connect those 3 cells for us.
yeah, let's go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, you
Nice.
can
And
take it.
check that
Take that.
and check that picking hand out, guys. Martin, it looks like he's not picking the slide into the cell. He's not double picking that. Play that one more time.
Yeah, because that's a matter of articulation, right? It removes a lot of mojo if you pick that, I think. It's
Exactly.
kind of, sounds a little robotic, you know, but if you...
Nice,
But
dude. Beautiful.
with that slide, it becomes a little more graceful, if you will. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something I always try to touch on doing clinics or whatever. It's like, of course, we can quantify harmony fairly easily. We can quantify rhythm fairly easily,
Yeah.
but tone and touch and sound and articulation and how you deliver something, that's that. Again, that goes into that fifth element territory where you really hear a player's thumbprint. You really hear that player, you know. And as you guys are out there in internet world, sitting there with your guitar in your lap, kind of working through this, man, there is no wrong answer. This is just how Martin does it to sound like Martin, and you can experiment with the different tones and timbres and articulations. Man, thank you so much for that. That's one of those things that I think, you know, every player in our mind, when we think of a player, we can think of that one thing that like jumps out. Like that's always
Yeah.
like one of those things that is so signature to you. And it's funny, you know, we see the triads and we can draw a little bit of a line to Eric Johnson, but the line and your delivery and how you do those, it doesn't sound EJ to me at all.
Well, yeah, the
It sounds like
complete
Martin.
Eric Johnson, the Eric Johnson mode, then it comes into play when you extend it to an open voice triad.
Yeah, and you make the octaves wider apart. Yeah. Yeah. But
that
even
kind of
as
thing.
you're doing them, man, you just sound so much like you. And I think going back to that petri dish of Petrucci formisms, I think all of us were very, I don't like to say blessed. We had an inspiration that
Oh,
drove us
that
into our own voices. Like nobody sounds like Andy James. Nobody sounds like
yeah.
Rick. And like the four or five of us, five or six of us that were in that it's probably one of the
I owe
greatest
so
moments of
much to
my
that
life.
forum and that
Same,
community that
same,
I
dude.
mean, it's because I didn't have. Unfortunately, when I was young, I grew up in a tiny village. We had like 180 people in our in our area or something. There was no other guitar player except me, and and also in school, we didn't have a big culture of school bands or rock music being played in our school. So I was pretty much the only guy uh, trying to pursue that kind of thing. And the Petrucci Forum was my substitute guitar buddies.
Yeah.
And because there was so much talent there, you know, when you're just hanging out in your local area, it's very easy for you to think you're the shit. And if you don't have anybody else around you doing that kind of thing, it leads you to believe that you're something special, right? But and nowadays you have Instagram
Oh,
taking that off,
but uh,
taking.
but that wasn't there when we
But
were.
that wasn't there back in the day,
Yeah, that
and
wasn't there.
having that community and having those role models, those slightly older guys like you and Tom, those people that were kind of role models for me. Rick, you, Tom, Chris Brooks, ton of
Yep.
other guys.
AJ, man,
It
AJ
was
was big in that scene too.
Andy,
Yeah.
yeah, man. So all of them slightly older than me, and I had really had something to aspire to, and I wouldn't have had the drive to do to go to that extent if it hadn't been for you guys, and no doubt.
I mean, it's funny. It's funny how almost every conversation leads me back to the Petrucci Forum somehow, because that's just like, for as much as we all had, it's like, man, the moment one of us was in on a conversation or a tone thing, I was like, see, I saw Wishy pop up. I was like, I'm going to check out what I don't even care what the topic is. I'm going to check out
Van
what.
Halen.
It's like we all had our little names and we were like in there doing it, and it was a very, very special situation. And it just, obviously, here we are all these years later, doing what we do, and people don't realize, man, the few times, like a NAM or whatever, where we get to hang out, it's like, man, that's the best. It's the
Yeah,
best because we all love music and we all came out of that same, high school or whatever, the senior
there
class.
was some just some magic going on in that forum, honestly,
Yeah,
and that's something that in the Facebook and Instagram world is going to be hard to replicate. That sense of community was something else.
that's a great point, and let's just transition into one last topic here. And I'm not bringing this topic up out of putting too much emphasis on it, but toxicity in communities, man,
Oh yeah,
it can really stunt the growth. And toxicity can mean a lot of different things, right? One of the things that made Petrucci Forum special is there was very, very, very little. If I can't even remember any crazy drama on there, or very little
I think
drama
I
on there.
posted some crap when I was 16, but
But I mean,
those
yeah,
the growing
even
pains.
even
That
what
was the
that even what that crap was isn't like some things that we see today. The smack talk that goes on YouTube, the keyboard warriors that are
oh yeah,
constantly hating and berating and putting all this effort into bringing things down. There's a great analogy about, if you want to build the biggest building in a city, you don't go about that by tearing down all the other buildings.
yes, that's
You
an
know what I
excellent
mean?
point.
Yeah, it's like that's the thing, right? So how do you do two things? How do you keep yourself clear-headed, and also, uh, what is it in regarding toxicity that you think we could all improve on, right? As a guitar community as a whole, what is that? What are some of your just like knee-jerk reactions? You're like, man, this is what we need to improve on regarding making our community of guitar players better. Because even though we
Yeah,
think we are in the gabajillions of population, we're like this big of human,
yeah.
like we're guitar players, we're this much, and the rest of the world's here, but yet we like to take down and tear down each other. And one of the things that I see that we're the worst to do is if we get some notoriety and things start going well, we tend to push others down too. And maybe, Jack really went on a tangent, remember his video about the false presentation of quote unquote fake playing
Hmm.
and things like this. It's like, where does that toxicity thing live to you? And what is it that you would like to see us as a community do to improve that and make that better?
Yeah. So you responded to this post I made the other day, right? Where I saw JTC post a video of somebody
Yeah, let me
playing a.
interject. Let me interject. Not everybody may know what JTC is. So
Oh yes.
that, yeah. Just explain what that is first of all.
So the famous Gemtrack Central platform that had all the, there was a very, and still is, but was particularly influential with the early Guthrie Govan videos and Alex Hutchings videos they put out, and ever since have been a huge part of the guitar community
Yeah. So they
online.
posted an artist doing a cover
They,
of a Guthrie song. I believe it was Five.
yes, a fan, not one of their artists, just a mere fan,
That he nailed it. I mean, he was
and
ripping.
he freaking nailed it. Yeah,
He was
nailed it.
ripping.
Yeah. Like he could easily be on that platform and be putting out
Hey, that
stuff.
show. I thought he was on the platform. I was like, he nailed it so hard.
And that kind of makes it even worse, because he didn't even ask for that kind of negative attention. He was
So people don't know. Clarify what happened. Sorry.
yeah. So JTC saw him do that cover solo, thought it was so great that they put it on their platform, released it on their platform, and people just started ripping into him. Not everybody, but it was enough people, like from the performance to the choice of song. Like they were giving him shit for being tasteless when he was playing somebody else's solos. So that's not really for him to blame, right? Down to the physical appearance.
It's
And
like,
I kind of lost my shit because I felt so disgusted by this display of just sheer hatred that it really put me off. And I felt like, this could have been me back in the day.
it could have been any of us, man.
Yeah.
And I, we all have haters that hate on, but I think, all of us, our mental health is in a great spot, and we try to just blow that off as keyboard warriors, right? We saw that thing rise and fall. But what if you never saw it rise and fall and you
Mhm.
only have known life? Maybe you're 20 years old now and you've only known life on click votes, up votes, and down votes, and it's like that warps your perspective. Then you're out there and you make a cover of something, playing the notes that you're not even choosing, and you're getting lambasted over
Yeah.
note choice. It's like that you're recreating it. It's like, what are you gonna do? Play In the Name of God and then be blamed because it's just a bunch of chromatic wankery? It's like, no, that's not. What are you talking about? That's how the In the Name of God solo goes. For those who don't know, I'm referencing a famous Dream Theater outro
Yeah,
that is
yeah.
a ton of chromatic pull-offs and hammer-ons and things like that. But
I,
anyways,
I just I just don't think it. Why does anybody, if it's not their taste, feel the need to express that? Like personally, I try to remove myself and my own taste and my subjectivities as much as I can when listening to music. That may sound a bit funny, but I don't necessarily listen to music and be so obsessed whether I like it or not, but just to understand it for what it is and
and
what
maybe,
the artist is trying to achieve.
and then go into to now, once you have not done that, you're going to spend all of this effort and all of this time to write something, tearing somebody down. It's like all
Yeah.
of that energy, even if it was only 15 minutes to write a post, or 10 minutes, or 5 minutes, like that's 5 minutes of energy that you're never going to get back, that all you did was just go to tear things down. That's
And
not constructive
one of the,
criticism.
I'm sorry.
There is a point where we in Petrucci Forum were constructively critic of each other constantly.
Yeah,
And it's like
yeah,
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not
yeah.
talking about constructive criticism. I'm not talking about helping someone learn by saying, hey man, your vibrato, you should maybe hold your hand. Like that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about your head looks stupid. Your shirt's dumb. It's
Yeah.
like what is that?
I mean, one of my followers in my Discord server, by the way, I have a Discord server now, and you should join it, man, for like an hour or so, answer some questions. I'm sure people would be stoked. Like I have this Discord community, and one of the guys in there is a counselor, and he said to me, the reason people keep doing it is because they get away with it. There's no negative consequences for putting somebody down online. And I received a few comments under my big rant post pointing out this toxicity that said, "Oh, fuck it, it's just the haters, man." And part of me agrees with that. The other part of me says, why do we let them off the hook? Why is, oh, it's just the haters, don't worry about them. No, actually, man, maybe there should be some negative consequences for talking shit about others. So maybe we should start pointing these things out to people, not in a negative way. We shouldn't go down to their level, but
That's
we
right.
should maybe say, "Hey,
Bring
man,
awareness. It's more like
what you're saying is not okay. Why do you talk about this guy's physical appearance? Why? Well, oh, you didn't even know it was not his solo. Why do you even comment?"
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's something we could hold our community standards a little bit higher. You know, I've seen this. It seems like video game culture. I'm a huge gamer, right? It's like,
Oh, same, man.
yeah. We talk about that a lot. But like, video game culture has always been on this like 4 or 5 year swing in front of the guitar culture. Like we are
Yes.
just now getting to Twitch and Discords and things like this, and
Yeah.
they've been on this stuff for years. And I'm a huge Destiny player, and I've watched the Destiny community as of late go through some growing pains in trying to better the community, you know, in that kind of way. Yeah, man, I think that's all big stuff. And when we have conversations that I feel like are healthy, I feel like a healthy topic may be an opinion on, like Jack's opinion, our whole group opinion on, you know, the manufactured music or whatever you want to call that. That's not degrading. Like that is a perspective and a conversation to be had. And I think what I interpret from what you're saying is we don't all have to agree, right? Disagreeing actually cultivates growth when we disagree and we go in different directions. It's how we have those conversations that really matter. It's not a personal attack. You know, this isn't the your face is stupid or why, you know, you're dumb for doing this. It's like no. I like the healthy conversations as much as anybody. I like a healthy debate as much as anybody, right? But I think the goal to come out of those things is to better the community and better ourselves and take something away for ourselves. You know what I mean? So toxicity, you know, everyone out there, just be aware that when you're about to type something, you know, it's like really take a point of view of why you're doing it and what it is that you're trying to say, because a lot of times I've had healthy comments worded horribly. You know what I mean? It's like I can dig through and like interpret what somebody's saying, but like the wording is just so offensive and so, you know, like you know, we could have a conversation for hours, you know what I mean? But I guess to put a bow on it, you know, you really nailed it with some of your points on that. It's like we deserve to hold ourselves to a higher standard as a guitar community because we are small, you know.
There's a lot of scrutiny that artists and creators undergo, and I think it's time that the community undergoes a similar level of scrutiny.
That's right. To better itself, to become better artists, to be a better community. It's like that's the end goal, right?
Exactly.
So, with end goals in mind, have you got anything outside of the record that we hit on? And obviously, we're all in a pandemic lockdown, so there's no touring. But what kind of things are you setting in place, setting in motion for the upcoming months, years, and you know, what is it that you're most excited to do once the pandemic opens up? Maybe let's end it there.
Well, let's see. I try to put enough time aside to play guitar, to practice vocals, to experiment with production, just spend quality time just doing music. Whether that's on my own or somebody else, that's something I really try to set a time and try to maintain a healthy amount of just music making, inherent music making with not necessarily a specific purpose.
Yep.
The music itself being the end goal. So that's something I try to keep up. I try to cultivate my music, my YouTube channel. Keep the videos coming even through the pandemic. That means we have a session with the band scheduled for September with no guest yet. trying to source out somebody maybe local. So not have somebody fly in from the States as usual, but try to find somebody from here that can sit in with us until things get better, and hopefully we can have you one day.
That would be amazing, dude. It's funny, man.
Yeah.
I was supposed to be in Europe right now. Like I had a whole.
Oh man, it's got to happen. When the stars align, it's got to happen.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Okay, let's do a little housekeeping here. Give me those .coms and those .orgs and all those things. Throw all that stuff where people can get your content and just let them know, man.
Yeah, just look for Martin Miller or Martin Miller Session Band on YouTube. Check out www.martinmillerguitar.com. And from there, everything is linked. All my instructional products from JTC, all that kind of stuff is linked from there.
Excellent. One last question. What game are you playing right now? What game's good to you?
Thank you for asking me this question, because I need to be, I have such an inner urge to be talking about this game. I'm playing an ancient German role-playing game right now called Gothic 2. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Nope.
Man, it's
God. I thought for sure you were going to say Ghost of Tsushima. I thought for sure.
No. It's a game from 2000. I want to say 2005, and it's like a hidden gem. It's one of my favorite games of all times, and it's actually has been a big inspiration for a lot of AAA games that came way later on. Like it's one of the main inspirations for the Witcher games in the way the game is designed. Yeah, the gameplay is clunky as hell, and it looks dated, but there's something about the world building and about, like, for example, that was all before there were any loot boxes. It was before there was 1,000 things on an open world map. It's an open world game, but there's not 1,000 lists to cross off. Every NPC, every monster, every location is handcrafted and has some sort of meaning to the progression or the story. Man, Gothic 2, with the gold edition, with the Night of the Raven add-on, everybody's got to play it. And you got to play it because it's a German game, you got to play it with the German voice acting and English subtitles. That's the way to play it.
Okay, is it what platform is it on?
PC only.
Okay, PC only. Great, excellent.
I don't own a console, so but I have a monster PC, so that can play all the games. Yeah.
All right, brother. Hey, man, thank you so much for being on the show. You rule. I'm such a.
Oh, thanks, man.
This made my day, dude. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, man. Big pleasure.
Cheers, Martin.